All right. Welcome to the Antigen Cyber Podcast. My name is Timothy D. Block, the Director Advisory Services at Antigen. With me today is Stephen Legg, the CEO of Antigen Security. How are you, Stephen?
Hey, doing well, Tim. How are you?
Pretty good. Trying to get over this cold weather a little bit. Just kind of appeared here in Tennessee. I don't know about up there if you have s- received that cold snap.
Yeah, it's been weird. The last 2 weeks we've had some summer-like days and some winter-like days. So definitely been interesting
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
usual.
All right, so we're here to talk about email security. I guess first off, we kind of need to define what is email security.
Yeah, so when we look at email security or any modern email security solution, really we define it as any email security solution that includes both pre and post delivery protection, URL and attachment sandboxing, anti-malware or virus scanning, data loss prevention and detection, and encryption capabilities. And really, those things, there are lots of different email protection products out there, both kind of the old traditional inline email as well as kind of API-based email solutions. But we only consider a email advanced email protection modern if it meets all of those criteria.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we're talking email firewalls, things like that.
Yeah, yes, correct. Would include all the things that you would see in like a traditional, spam filtering solution with those additional other features.
Yep. Yep. And they seem to keep expanding. So I'm sure they're already starting to get the AI in there, if it
Well,
wasn't.
yeah, a lot of providers now have AI integrated into their threat detection capabilities because there's a lot of like the squirrel waffles and other kind of business email compromise threat actors in the world focus a lot on now getting under the radar, at least for that initial email, and using a link or something else to direct them somewhere where the malicious content is. And so a lot of the solutions that are leveraging AI now today are doing that to help detect those types of playbooks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bit, and you hear it all the time, cat and mouse game. They're always going to try to find new techniques.
Yep.
So why is email security important?
Well, I think the best way to answer that question is to talk about someone who undervalued email security and how it affected them. So we the last 36 months had a situation with a hospital system that um, their kind of standing IT mandate and security mandates are really all around cost control, and they had kind of banked everything on their cyber insurance policy coming through for them, given that they avoided any other kind of proactive investment outside of like basic antivirus and kind of a traditional spam protection solution that was built into their on-premise exchange. And when they went down the road of compromise and something happened to them, it started, of course, with a business email compromise, but um, really just kind of expanded and led to uh, a full-scale compromise of their exchange server, a lot of their medical data systems that included all their customer PHI and PII. And once they got down the road of the insurance claim, they what ended up happening is that the insurer found out they hadn't patched or maintained that exchange server in over 3 years, and so it was vulnerable and had been exploited in the family of proxy logon and proxy shell vulnerabilities. And they actually pulled their coverage. They returned their premium and pulled their coverage and said that you are not in compliance with the requirements of the policy, and so sorry that that hospital system ended up coming out of pocket something like $6 million in total between settling with the individual users that were affected who were the subjects of that data, as well as the kind of all of the response costs and negotiating with the threat actor.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty standard nowadays. I can't imagine people not having something in place. because
Well,
there's just so much stuff out there. And even, I think I've seen statistics around like 90% of email sent nowadays is usually either spam or some sort of malicious. It's pretty interesting.
yeah, no, it's definitely one of those kind of bread and butter or foundational controls I would consider for every organization, regardless of size or type. Um, I mean, given, like you said, given how much communication generally is happening over email and how critical it is to most businesses, it's really surprising that more folks don't consider this kind of an essential control.
Yeah, yeah. To me, I mean, I've been dealing with it for I don't know, over 15 years. I think when I first started messing with with the email firewall, and even then, I knew the importance of it.
Hmm.
The story I had is we actually had our email gateway blocking it. I think nowadays they've kind of figured out that problem, but I was like, if we like the option was to wait for a fix from the vendor or open it up and
Hmm.
bypass that firewall. And I was like, this is gonna be bad. And I spent the next several weeks cleaning up malware because they decided it was a business decision to open it, and just everything got in. And I was just cleaning up malware on machines for weeks afterwards, all because we opened it up. So you mentioned cost. Like, what is the cost of an email security? Is it pretty expensive? Is it reasonable? Is there a mix of both?
I mean, depending on the solution that you pick and kind of the older inline solutions, some of them can be more pricey, even though they're not quite as effective. But most modern solutions, ones that have the criteria and characteristics that I mentioned earlier, they're anywhere from on the low end like $1 or $2 per month per user, on the high end somewhere between like $7 and $15 per month per user. Again, depending on what solution you pick, but anything really in that range is pretty feasible in terms of the cost.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty reasonable too for the amount of protection that we've already kind of highlighted. That's actually not too bad of a cost. So even anybody at a small business should be able to get a pretty good uh, email protection in place.
Well, and that's, I mean, that's reflected in the fact that now cyber insurance carriers, even for small businesses, are requiring advanced email protection. It's one of those kind of bread and butter controls, along with EDR and MFA, that really just every organization, regardless of the size, typically needs. And insurance carriers have recognized that and are now requiring it.
Right. And it's I just lost my thought. It just fluttered away. Um
Goodbye, thought.
yeah, good, yeah, exactly. It was a good thought too. It was gonna kind of go along with it. But this seems fairly obvious, but where is it deployed? And like how is it deployed?
So as I mentioned, there's predominantly two types of email protection. There are inline solutions, which are kind of the old school, configuration via MX record and DNS changes, and actually kind of funneling all that mail through that protection solution first. And then there are many now modern solutions that are API based, and so whether you're using Google Suite or Microsoft 365 or what have you, you're able to bolt on that email protection and provide both incoming and post delivery protection with those more advanced solutions. You can with some inline solutions also, but it's just less common.
Yeah, so and again, going back to my day, it was more of an appliance, but now it seems like a lot of it's you just pretty much filter or set it up within, whatever your email provider is to have that mail go through this other provider first.
Correct. Yeah, it's much more of a it's all SaaS now, right? So it's no longer an on-premise exchange with a physical email protection appliance that's in line with it. Um, now it's some sort of cloud-based software or API-based attachment to those email systems.
Are there any nuances with that as far as if you're in a heavily regulated industry, like you've mentioned healthcare, right? Is there any sort of I guess, things to consider when you're talking about email security?
So I would say anybody that has a large amount of PII or PHI that's being transmitted in some way that's electronic, if you're not, if your email protection isn't detecting things like social security numbers or financial information or any other type of sensitive info that could be leaked or involved in a leak, if your email protection is not automatically detecting and reporting on that, you're kind of at a disadvantage in those industries. And a lot of times that looking at how many instances of unfiltered or plain text data like that that's sent via email is often a very relevant statistic for helping to inform things like security awareness training, and other requirements that apply to those regulated industries. So really, like, good email protection that includes that perspective should really live as something that is a part of your overall cyber risk management um, outlook that plays a key role in multiple outcomes, for those regulated customers.
And I think you mentioned the DLP point too, right? You can set up the DLP to ensure that some of that data doesn't go to the wrong organization, essentially.
Correct. Or if it is sent, that it's detected, and you can configure rules to either stop or interrupt that and notify the user, or to notify appropriate staff so that they can deal with whatever outcomes need to be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, another benefit that I've really liked is, phishing emails are always going to get through the email filters because attackers are trying new techniques. One of the things I've seen more recently in the last few, I guess, several years at this point, but still, is the ability for these email firewalls that if they deliver something and they find it's malicious, they can go back and grab those files or grab those phishing emails.
Yeah, no, that's where I was mentioning kind of that post-delivery protection.
Yep.
So that becomes a really critical one, especially when you're talking about like in intercompany emails and compromises that happen as a secondary attack after an initial compromise has occurred on like one endpoint or mailbox. And oftentimes, like if an email protection solution doesn't have that capability, it won't be able to provide visibility or really any remediation in those circumstances. Because, and this is one of the disadvantages of those kind of older traditional inline solutions. Once it's in the door, or to your point, past the email firewall, it really can't be affected or touched by that solution anymore. And so that's why a lot of the more modern solutions in this vein are really taking that kind of bolt-on or API based approach that allows you to just kind of read and interact with everything in the mail tenant, whether it's first coming in or already in existence and known bad in the tenant, which is useful as well too, because there are times, as you said, when different fishes get through. Threat actors use playbooks that now they deprioritize sending malicious payloads up front because they know those will get caught in traditional solutions. So when they send that malicious link that drives a user where they shouldn't be, or what have you, those post delivery protections really make that a great opportunity to go and find more instances of that same, whether it's the same email or same approach, across the entire mail tenant, rather than, again, only getting that protection when the messages first hit the server.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've also found it's really good for investigations. So again, going back to the being able to pull email, you can see where you can search on phishing emails and then check to see if who all got them. So then that allows you to respond a lot better if something does slip through and people have clicked on it.
Yeah, no, and actually, as a digital forensics, as a part of our digital forensics team, that's one of the first things we deploy in a business email compromise, even if they have some other form of protection. Often because we will find a lot of information that maybe even circumvented other protection mechanisms, or was just already there dormant. And oftentimes that leads us to finding instances of compromise that maybe happened a lot earlier than whatever the big explosive event might have been, before any kind of mass emails got sent out, or any kind of mass exfiltration happened, or anything like that.
Yep, absolutely. So how do people get email security?
Well, obviously you can work with service providers. You can go direct to those SaaS companies that provide those types of solutions. But in general, what you need to think about when you're evaluating email security are really, it comes down to a couple things. Um, the type of risk that you have as an organization. Are you a higher risk organization from an email perspective? Do you transmit and receive send and receive regularly a lot of PII, PHI, or other sensitive data? Are you doing business with regulated entities? Are you interacting with folks that need a heightened level of security? If you are in that bucket, then when you're evaluating advanced email protection solutions, you really want to focus on those DLP encryption and other kind of protective capabilities that exist beyond just kind of spam control and malware filtering, because that's a much, when you're weighing the impact of what a business email compromise would mean to an organization like that, it's much more significant when a threat actor can go into a single email account and get a treasure trove of PII, PHI, contact info, and other information about their customers, partners, or otherwise, or even internal employees, versus having most of that information encrypted, sent through only appropriate channels, or caught by the solution so that it's not dwelling in those mailboxes for undue amounts of time without being protected.
Okay, cool. What else do we need to mention that we haven't covered as far as email security? You feel like we've gotten everything?
So I think the only thing that I would say is that if you haven't implemented email security today, or you're using a traditional inline product or appliance, you really should be thinking about both what you're doing in general for email, but as an extension of that, really how effective your solution is at preventing a majority of the kind of low hanging fruit attacks that come through via email all the time. Because as you mentioned, Tim, the threats never stop coming through those channels, because it doesn't cost those threat actors much to spam everything, right? And just maintain their lists and continue to attack and just try to get a foothold anywhere. So really, you want to think about your risk and kind of which type of organization you fall into, whether you're more focused on those kind of proactive and preventative controls for inbound or inter-office emails, versus the encryption and data loss prevention technologies that are critical when you're dealing with lots of um, PII or other sensitive data. So that's really kind of what I would leave folks with that are thinking about email protection, haven't maybe implemented a modern solution, and maybe are on an on-premise exchange or hosted exchange server still somewhere. These are all things that, from a business perspective, we should be thinking about in terms of the business IT strategy, and as an extension of that, the cyber risk strategy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. Well, if you have any follow-up questions or thoughts, feel free to send them to us. You could drop in the comments chat, or hit us up online. Stephen, what should we be plugging here?
So if you haven't registered yet, go and get signed up for our first Cyber Forum event that'll be happening towards the end of the month here. More details on our website and our social media pages if you have not done that. That is going to be a great way to stay ahead of everything from email security to all the topics we talk about, on a more practical practitioner level. So if you are a practitioner, you're somebody that's dealing with these challenges day to day, in your day job or otherwise, come join and hang out and talk with other like-minded folks, and let's beat these challenges together.
Awesome. Well, I think that's going to do it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Stephen.
Take care, everybody.